Why is the deadlift so good for people with lower back pain? That's what we're going to look at in this tutorial, and we're going to take you through not only why is it good, but also how to perform it correctly and the different scenarios that you may find yourself in where you need to use it, and also we'll look at some alternatives that go along with it. If you are struggling with lower back pain, you do need some help, click the link below, go through to my how to overcome lower back pain, either face-to-face consultation and assessment or online consultation or assessment. First of all, why is the deadlift good for lower back pain? Well, the first reason is just an everyday reason, and that is that you're going to lift something during the day, so we need to be able to, first of all, get in the right position, know what muscles to engage. So whether we've got lower back pain that was caused from coming over and lifting, there is a good chance we're going to have to go back into that position. Now, as I mentioned, we are going to talk about some alternatives later on that you may need to use initially. But the other good thing about the deadlift is that we've got 2 feet on the floor. And what that does is that gives us a solid platform. Now, as I mentioned, there may be some alternatives that we need to put into place to be able to manage it. But no matter the back pain, because it is just an everyday thing that we do, in that we need to lift things up, then we need to start thinking about how we can use the deadlift to be able to get into a better position in everyday life so we can mitigate the problems that we could cause if we were going to lift incorrectly. So how are we going to perform it? Now, that's what we've got to talk about first. So I've got obviously a kettlebell here, and I'm also going to bring a step in. So there's a few things that we need to think about when we are going into the position and when we are lifting the weight up. Now, I'm going to be talking about the deadlift with both feet in this, or lifting from this position with both feet next to each other. Again, depending on the object that you're lifting, depending on the weight of it, and depending on the size of it, will depend on where you need to put your feet. But what won't really change is the position of your torso and the principle of where we move from. And that first principle is we move from the hip. So when we come to lift a weight or an object, what we need to be able to do is first of all get the spine in the right position. Generally, when people are lifting and their back is aggravated by it, it's because they're either in a rounded position or their back is so fatigued that it just has to give up. So what we need to be able to do is get more muscles in play first. So what we do is we need to first of all engage the abdominals. So the abdominals need to be tight. That's going to help with the stabilizing of the lumbar spine. So we brace the abdominals and or the abdominal wall, the rectus abdominis and the obliques. What we then need to do is get the movement from the hip. What we're then able to do, once we've got the movement coming from the hip, we can keep the spine in position. We can lift the chest up, we can push the lats down. Now, what you may find is that when we're creating so much tension around the torso, that can aggravate the back. Now, if it's the amount of tension that you're creating that aggravates, you may just want to either loosen the abdominal wall slightly or the lats slightly. You may find that just loosening that slightly reduces the aggravation to the back. You've then got 2 other options. One is to just focus on the lats, so just pushing the lats down and not so much on the abdominals, or more on the abdominals and less on the lats. All of this will depend on which one aggravates it. Is it all of the tension that aggravates it? Is it just the abdominals that aggravate it? Is it just the lats that aggravate it? If it is, you need to be able to mitigate and adapt that tension to be able to do it. But if we assume that we can get down into that position, so we've got tension here, we come down into this position. Now, as you can see, I'm still not quite close enough. Now, I've got 2 options here. I either need to get the weight raised up, but again, that will depend on the weight and whether I can get down there. Or I come into this position and then I can bend my knees slightly. And then that gets me down into this position. All the time, the weight is staying close to me. So what I'm not doing is I'm not lifting in that position. Now again, when we talk about the alternatives, I'm going to go through some more of these, some more variables that we need to be able to understand. But as I mentioned, for now, it's just feet next to each other. So we go back, I bend my knees, I can get down. What I now need to do, now that I've got tension in the abdominals and or the lats, is I then need to push my knees out. That's going to get my glute medius and minimus engaged. That's going to stabilize the hip, which the lower back sits on. So again, we come down into this position, we push the knees out. Once we're in this position, it's then squeezing shoulders down, tummy in, and then squeeze of the glutes and come to the top. All the time, I'm also keeping my head in line. I keep the weight close to me. So again, I'm not extending the lever, I'm keeping the weight close all the way through. So that is how we would go about performing it. Now again, you have to understand that what's aggravating it. Is it the tension that's aggravating it? Is it the range of movement that's aggravating it? Is it the weight that's aggravating it and the position that you're in? If it is, then we've got some alternatives that could mitigate that. The first alternative is to get the weight up on something. Now this obviously isn't always ideal, but if we're going to get the weight on something and we can't get down far enough, we've got to be able to get down there to lift the weight up onto something. So what we would do is we would come down onto one knee. Now what I can do is I can get whatever the object is and I can lift it up a little bit higher. If I've got someone to help me, then obviously I can use them as well. But if I can lift this weight up onto something a little bit higher, or I can get it onto something a little bit higher, again, if you look at what I'm doing, I'm still using that same principle from here. So I'm still hinging at the hip, I'm still tipping my body forward, I've got my head in line, I can still keep all the tension that I need to, I'm keeping the weight close, and then as I come up, I can shift my weight and get it raised surface. What I can then do is come up from that position and then I can lift it up. So that's an option to be able to do that. The other one, again, depending on the object, if it's not a big, heavy object, if it's something that you can get your hand on, you might go single leg. Now this is, again, single leg RDL, depends on stability and balance, and we would get leg nice and straight, engage this glute, engage through here, come down, and then lift the weight, and then off we go and carry it wherever we need to carry it. And then finally, which is what I've mentioned already, is going down onto one knee. Now, obviously, I've gone down onto one knee to put it onto a raised surface. But what we can also do, which helps us get down lower, if I just bring that back down here, again, if it's an object that I can get up using one leg, then I would come in, I can grab a hold of it as I need to. Again, I'm hinging at the hip all the time. And then I can stand up and take the weight wherever I need to take it. So I've got all these different options to be able to lift and get the weight off the floor. So as a quick summary, why is the deadlift such a good exercise for lower back pain? Because it teaches us how to lift correctly. We've also got some alternatives. Now this isn't going to work in every single scenario, but what you are going to do is you're going to find yourself in a position where you need to lift something in everyday life. And you need these types of positions or know-how to be able to get down into the position. Because again, I could split my stance here. Again, hips, moving. There's so many different ways of doing it, depending on what the object is and where it is. So we need to be able to use these tips to be able to lift safer, which is going to protect our lower back. So this isn't necessarily going to cure a lower back pain, but it is going to mitigate it and get us into the safest position possible to be able to go about everyday life in the safest way if we are struggling with lower back pain. If you like this content, please do click the like button below. If you learned something new, hit the thanks button below. If you want to watch more of these tutorials, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon. If you've got a comment or a question, leave that below. And if you want help with your lower back pain, please do click the link below and go through to the How to Overcome Lower Back Pain consultation and assessment.